Array is an object of the base type system.array. What is multidimensional array? Here multidimensional array is also known as rectangle array. When I am going to create array within the array, then it is known as jagged array. Hello to all, a warm welcome to my new session on methods in C#. I am Revati, faculty from the Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. So dear student, before going to start my today's session, let me to recall the topic what I have covered in my last session. So dear student, in my last session, I have discussed the output parameters. This parameter is mainly used to create reference type, and along with that I have discussed variable arguments list. There are certain time I want to send the different parameter list, in the sense each time I'm going to change the length of the parameter. For that I'm going to have param keyword. That means if I want to make use of variable argument list in my program, then I'm going to use param keyword. And to support output parameters, I'm going to use out keyword. Along with that, I have discussed method overloading. Along with that, I have discussed two types of method overloading, that is based on the data type and based on the number of parameters we are going to use. So these are the certain topic I have discussed in my last session. But in my today's session, I am going to deal with what is an arrays. In that, I am going to deal with what is C# array type. In that, I am going to deal with what is single dimensional array, how to create single dimensional array, what is multidimensional array. Along with that, I am going to discuss what is jagged array. So dear student, in my today's session, at the beginning, I am going to deal with the topic called arrays. So what is array? I hope in all the programming languages like C, C++, Java, you studied this concept. So what is array? Here array is nothing but the collection of same kind of element or homogeneous element, and all the elements are grouped under same name, and all the elements are stored in the continuous memory. So array in C# is a group of similar type of elements. Dear student, think that I have the elements like -16, 12.5 and I have 10. Now tell me, is it possible to store these elements under array? No, because all these are different kinds of element. If I consider my first element, it's of type negative number, and this is my floating point number, and this is my integer number. So what is array here? Array is nothing but a group of similar kind or type of element. That means I can able to store only same kind of element. For example, think that I have 10, 20 and 30. So all the elements are of same type. So I can able to store these elements that have contiguous memory allocation. That means when I create array, the job of the compiler is to allocate memory. And how the compiler is going to allocate the memory? That is in the form of continuous memory. So all the elements are going to occupy continuous memory, in the sense one element is going to occupy first position, then second element is going to occupy second position, and nth element is going to occupy nth position. So it is nothing but the continuous memory location. So in C hash, array is an object. So dear student, if I consider C hash programming, it's example for object oriented programming language. Then what is object oriented programming language? Under object oriented programming language, everything is treated as classes and object. And if I consider array, then this is also object. So array is an object of the base type system.array. That means this array is derived from the system.array. Now in C hash, array index starts from 0. That means if I consider array, the index of an array is going to start from 0, and what about last index? It's n minus 1. Why it is n minus 1? Because array index starts from 0. For that reason, the nth index is n minus 1. So we can store only fixed set of elements. So dear student, this is the example I'm going to have here. So, how many data elements I have here? That is 4. One is 10 and another one is 20, 30 and 40. So, what kind of element? It's nothing but the whole number. That's nothing but integer. Now, this is nothing but the index. So, what is index? Here, index is nothing but the base or subscript. That means if I want to access any element which is stored in the array, then with the help of index, I can able to access the element. Now see here, I have total 4 elements. Then what about index? My index starts from 0 to 3. So total 4. So my array index is always starts from 0, and when it's going to end? When it is n minus 1. Now there are 3 type of array. That means if I consider C hash programming, it supports 3 kind of arrays. And what are the 3 kinds? That is single dimensional. So what is single dimensional? That's nothing but only one index or only one dimension. Then what about multi-dimension? So it's going to have more than 2 dimension. Then I'm going to have jagged array. I hope this is the new terminology. So what is jagged array? It is nothing but array of array. That means when I'm going to create array within the array, then it is known as jagged array. So there are 3 type of arrays: single, multi and jagged array. Now see, I'm going to have single dimensional array. So what is single dimensional array? Dear student, think that I have 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50. So total how many elements? It is 5 elements, and all the elements are stored in the continuous memory allocation. Now the array index starts from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now when I create an array with only one index or only one indices or only with one dimension, then it is known as single dimensional array. For example, think that I want to access 40. Now I can able to access 40 with the help of array index. Now tell me how many array index I require to access 40. That is nothing but only one index, that is 3. So to create single dimensional array, you need to use square bracket. So anyway, dear student, in C program, C++, even in Java, we studied array concept. But Here also I am going to study array concept, but to create array I am going to use square bracket after the type. See the difference? To create array in C hash, I am going to use square bracket after the type. In the sense, first I want to write the data type. This is the syntax. First I want to write the data type, then write square bracket, then write the array name equal to use new keyword data type of size. I want to specify the size of array. So what is array? It's nothing but the collection of homogeneous or it's collection of same kind or similar kind of data item. Okay, so it is collection in the sense it's nothing but the set of. So I want to specify the size. So I am going to specify the size and place the semicolon at the end. So what is my syntax here? First I want to say or specify what kind of data it is. That is nothing but data type. After that, what I want to do? I want to write the square bracket to indicate that this is an array. Then I want to specify array name. So what is array name here? There's nothing but the valid identifier. Now I'm going to use new operator to allocate memory dynamically. Now I'm going to specify the type of the data. Along with that, I'm going to specify the size of an array. So this is the example. Here int is nothing but the data type and I'm going to create array. So I'm going to specify square bracket. This is my array name. I'm going to use new keyword. Along with that, I'm going to specify the data type and I'm going to specify the size. And when I execute this statement, what's going to happen? The compiler is responsible for allocating 5 into 2. Why it is 5? The size here is 5 and why it is 2? Because integer holds 2 bytes. So 5 into 2, total 10 bytes of memory is reserved for this array, or total 10 bytes of memory is created for this array ARR. Now I'm going to have the example. So dear student, writing program same as writing C program, but the programming language is vary, but the syntax remains as it is. So what is my first statement? Always in C hash programming, that is nothing but using system. After that, I am going to create my own class, and what is my class name? That is array example. Now, inside the array example, that is nothing but inside the class, I am going to write the main program. And the execution of the program is always going to start from main program. Now, see here, I am going to create an array. And what kind of array? It is integer, and I am going to allocate 10 bytes of memory. And what is my array size? It's 5. Now I am going to initialize the array value one by one. As I know that the array index always starts from 0. So here A of 0, I am going to assign 10, then A of 4, I am going to assign 20, and A of 4, I am going to assign 30. Now, think that this is my memory allocation, and total 5 memory cells are reserved. So, it is my AR of 0, it is 1, 2, 3 and 4. So what I'm doing here, I'm going to assign 10 here, then 20 and then 40. Now, okay, I want to print all the array elements one by one. So I'm going to use the for loop. Why I'm using for loop? Because the length of the array is 5 and it have more than one element. And I want to print all the element one by one. For that reason, I'm going to use for loop. Now, to get the array length, what I'm going to do? I'm going to use the property called length. And where this property is present? This property is present under system.array. So, this property present under system.array. Fine. And array index always starts from 0. So, array index starts from 0. Then what is my nth or last element? It is n minus 1. For that reason, I less than array dot length. And when I call this property, it's going to return the value 5. Now, I'm going to print first element, that is 10. Then I is incremented by 1. Now I is 1. 1 less than 5, the condition is true. I'm going to print second element. But what is present at position 1? That is some garbage value. So I'm going to get some garbage value. Say this is my garbage value. Now I is incremented by 1. Now I is 2. 2 less than 5, true. I'm going to print 20. Now I is 3. 3 less than 5. The condition is true. Now I'm going to print the element which is present at the location 3. If I consider this diagram, what is present at the location 3? That is some garbage value. So, I'm going to get some garbage value. Now, I is incremented by 1. I is 4. 4 less than 5. The condition is true. So, I'm going to print 30. Now, I is incremented by 1. Now, I is 5. 5 less than 5. The condition is false. So, the control comes out from the for loop. This is the way I can able to print the element which is stored in an array. Now I'm going to have array declaration and array initialization. So there are 3 ways I can able to initialize array. So these are the 3 commonly used initialization. See here, data type, square bracket, array, and I'm going to use the keyword new, and I'm going to use the data type, and I'm going to specify the size. Along with that means while declaring array itself, I'm going to assign or I'm going to initialize the value. So this is one kind. And see here, I'm going to have another kind. First, I'm going to specify the data type, and this is of type array, and I'm going to use new keyword, and I'm going to specify the data type. See the difference here. If I consider previous example, okay, I'm going to specify the size. If I consider this example, then I'm not going to specify the size. Now, the size of the array is decided based on number of elements. So here, how many number of elements I have? I have 5. That is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now what is the size of the array? It is 5. Now see here, this is also one kind. So I'm going to specify the data type, square bracket, array name, and directly I am going to assign the value, or directly I am going to initialize the value. So this is the way I can able to declare array and I can able to initialize. That means while declaring my array type, I'm going to initialize the value. Now I'm going to have multi-dimensional array. So what is multi-dimensional array? Here multi-dimensional array is also known as rectangle array. So what is rectangle array? If I consider multi-dimensional array, I'm going to have 2 index or more than 2 index. Minimum I can able to have 2. But what about other possibility? I can able to have more than 2 index. And all the elements are represented in the form of rectangle arrays. That means multidimensional array is also known as rectangle array. It can be 2-dimensional or it can be 3-dimensional. Now think that I have 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now tell me what kind of representation it is. It is matrix representation. That means the 2 is present at the index 0, 0 and 0, 1. Now 1, 0 and this one 1, 1. So this is my 0th row. So this is my 0th row and this is my 0th column. Now, if I consider second row, this is my first row and this is my first column. That means if I consider multi-dimensional arrays, the array index are represented in the form of rows and columns. That's nothing but tabular representation or table form. So the data is stored tabular form, that is row and column, which is also known as matrix. That means in multidimensional array, arrays are represented in the form of rectangular matrix or rectangular array. I can able to have 2-dimensional array and I can able to have 3-dimensional array, and all the arrays are represented in the form of rows and columns. So this is the example for multi-dimensional array. Now let me to write the syntax. So what is my first thing I want to write while writing syntax? That is data type. So I want to write data type to indicate it is multi-dimensional array. Within the square bracket, I'm going to write the comma. Leave one space, array name, use new operator and specify the total number of rows and total number of columns. So this is example for 3-dimensional array. To indicate it is 3-dimensional array, I'm going to use 2 comma. This is the way I can able to define multi-dimensional array. Now, how I can able to declare multi-dimensional array and how I can able to initialize multi-dimensional array. See here, same procedure like 1-dimensional array. To indicate this is 2-dimensional array, within square bracket I'm going to use comma, and the declaration, initialization procedure, everything is same. So here it is 3 cross 3 matrix. 3 cross 3 matrix in the sense what? How many elements? It is total 9 element. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. So it is nothing but the 3 cross 3 matrix. So it is example for an 2D. This is example for an 2D array. So If I consider second type, see here, I'm not going to specify the size, but rest of the things are same. And if I consider first example, I'm going to specify the size. But if I consider second one, I'm not going to specify the size, but the memory is allocated based on number of elements. I'm going to initialize. So here I have initialized total 9 element. And how many memory blocks are reserved? 9 into 2, total 18. And if I consider third one, here I'm not going to use new operator. Even I'm not going to specify the size. And when I write this statement, the compiler is responsible for allocating 18 byte of memory for this array ARR. Now, I'm going to have jagged array. So, dear student, if I consider the type of C# array, I discussed single dimensional array, multi-dimensional array. Now, I'm going to deal with jagged array. So, what is jagged array? Here the name itself indicates that within one array, I'm going to create another array. So, in C#, jagged array is also known as array of arrays because its elements are arrays. That means I'm going to create array within the array. That means whatever the array elements I'm going to have, that is represented in the form of arrays. The element size of the jagged array can be different. That means the size of the array is vary. And this is the example for jagged array. So, dear students, see here. First, I'm going to create array. In that, I'm going to create array of array. And here it is new operator, and I'm going to create array of array. The last topic of this session is variable size array. So, dear student, there are certain times I want to create variable size of array. For example, think that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Tell me how the arrays are represented. That is in the form of triangle. Okay, this is in the form of triangle. Fine. Now, is it possible to create this kind of array? Yes, I can able to create this kind of array in C# programming. For that, I am going to have variable size of array. Then tell me what is variable size of array. If I consider first element, I have one row and one column. So, dear student, if I consider 2, okay, 2 present at the first row, 0th column. Then what about 3? 3 is present at first row and first column. Now, if I consider 4, it present at the second row, 0th column. 5, second row, first column. 6, second row and second column. So, I am going to have variable length of array. So, C# treats multi-dimensional array as array of array. Suppose if I want to create array within the array, then I can able to use variable size array. That means it is possible to declare a two-dimensional array as follows. That means if I want to create two-dimensional array, then I can go with variable size array or variable length array. So, what I am going to do? First, I am going to declare the array and it's of type integer, and what is my array name? It's X, and I am going to create multi-dimensional array. So, what is this? indicates? It indicates I have 3 rows. I have 3 rows but variable length column. This indicates that I'm going to declare the array with 3 rows and variable length column. 3 rows in the sense what? It starts from 0, 1 and 2. Total 3. So dear student, if I consider first line, okay, 0th row. I have 0th row and how many elements? 2. Okay, that is 2 column. Now, if I consider first row, how many elements or how many column? 3 column. So, if I consider second row, I have second row and how many columns? 5 columns. Okay. For 0th column, first column, second, third and 4th. So dear student, I repeat, see first row has 2 elements. First row has 2 elements in the sense what? First row will have 2 columns, 0th column, first column and 2 elements, say 10 and 20. 10 and 20. Now, if I consider second row, okay, because array index starts from 0, so second row is nothing but first row. How many elements? 3 elements. I'll write 30, 40 and 50. And if I consider second index, there's nothing but second row. Okay, how many elements? 5 elements. 60, 70, 80, 90 and 100. Now tell me how the array looks like. It looks like triangle. Okay, this is example for variable size array. That means based on my requirement, my wish, I'm going to create the array, and that kind of array is known as variable size array. Anyway, these statements create 2-dimensional array having different length for each row. If I consider each row will have different column length. So these statements used to create a 2-dimensional array having different lengths for each row. The elements can be accessed as follows. That means with regular arrays, all indices is nothing but index, are within one set of square bracket. That means if I go with multi-dimensional array, I'm going to have one square bracket, and to indicate it as multi-dimensional array, I'm going to have the comma within the square bracket. While in jagged array, each element is within one square bracket. That means if I go with jagged array, each element will have its own square bracket. So dear student, in my today's session, I started with what is an array. Along with that, I have discussed the different types of array. So what are the different types of array we discussed? That is single dimensional array, multi-dimensional array as well as jagged array. But in my next session, I'm going to deal with the system.array class, properties of the array class, methods of the array class, C# array list class. Along with that, I'm going to discuss methods and properties of array list class and methods of the array list class. So these are the certain topic I'm going to deal in my next session. Anyway, dear student, let's meet in the next session with more information about system.array. Until that, keep watching and keep learning. Thank you.